What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandel, and I'm coming to you today live from Delray Beach, Florida. And what a beautiful day it is out there. What a spectacular treat I have for you all today. Michael Copon, the Blue Power Ranger. What TV star, movie star, producer, director, owns a studio, produces films, made 100 commercials since 2020. It is my privilege to introduce you all to my brother, my new partner of Raw Media. What we got a lot to share with you today. Michael, so great to see you, bro.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man,
how you doing?
Man, oh man, to be on camera with you, I mean, an original Power Ranger?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, Time Force. Actually, you know, the new series, just to kind of little bump up the Power Ranger community, all the new comics uses Time Force as the platform because we were time traveling Rangers. So it's actually bumped our whole IP up in the Power Ranger community. So our seasons are just like the Avengers, Tony Stark. My character's like the Tony Stark of the Time Force series. So I'm able to get any of the Power Rangers to time travel to any place in time. So it's pretty cool.
So I did my little research on you. I had my team, really just dig up what they could. And I just got to say, I never heard of you, but who doesn't know about the Power Rangers?
Yeah, it's a global, and I mean over $9.5 billion.
It's a real enterprise. And then my kids, Dad, One Tree Hill. Mm-hmm. And we were in a restaurant last night. People are running over to you. Get up, get out. What is that? The cheerleading dancing movie?
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky to be a part of multiple cult classics, I would say, That's So Raven, The Boys in Motion. Boys, we are the boys in motion. That was a big fake boy band that everyone loved. And then you got One Tree Hill, 9 seasons running.
Felix.
And played Felix. Then that was the Spanish Vince Vaughn of swingers. That's what literally the audition broke down as. And getting that role was fun. I'm coming on hot, spicy. And then, of course, I played the Young Rock. I always call myself the Pebble. If you smell what the Pebble is cooking.
King 2. I actually love that movie.
Yeah, man.
I'm a big fan of The Rock. And wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And last night at dinner, we had dinner at Prezzo. A little shout out to the guys at Prezzo. They took care of us.
Fabulous.
And, Michael, he can dance. Mm-hmm. He can dance. I mean, what? We saw some Justin Timberlake type
I had to pull it out the closet a little bit. It was a little dusty, but
we were all like, whoa. I mean, Stevie was ready to call a dance challenge.
Yeah, we almost had a dance battle.
Back in the day, Stevie could move.
I was scared of Stevie, though. He looked like he could take me.
Back in the day, he could move. I tell you what. Now, back in the day, I mean, I don't want to wind the clock.
I don't know. It must have been the gluten-free pasta that was holding me down, Stevie.
And he sings. You sing.
Yeah, I used to sing. I actually won VH1's But Can They Sing? It was a Dancing with the Stars version singing show. It was Joe Pantoliano, Morgan Fairchild, Antonio Sabato Jr., Bai Ling, myself. And I went the whole season, won. I got to give $50,000 away to the charity of my choice, which was the Shaken Baby Syndrome
Alliance. Should have been the Ross Mandel Foundation.
I know.
What's the matter with you?
But my brother who adopted that Shaken Baby Syndrome, so I gave it away to that same foundation.
So you can sing and you can. It's funny you mentioned Morgan Fairchild. I had a crush on her for a lot of years.
Oh, dude, she was just lovely to work with. We did a hit song called "Walking on Sunshine." Obviously, the remake. Great song, and me and her did that live, and it was an awesome time. The video of that is just fantastic.
And Antonio Sabato Jr. I'm proud to tell you,
he's still a good buddy of mine,
and he's a big fan of mine.
Yeah,
isn't that a funny thing?
Okay.
It's a new thing.
I have to text him today. Yeah, he's a really good buddy of mine. I actually just texted him 2 days ago because I bumped into someone in Austin, Texas that was best friends with him.
Is that why? And he's coming on this podcast. So
no way.
I swear to you.
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
Excited.
All right, I have to.
Stephanie had a thing for him.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm talking a major thing.
And he's a good-looking, he's a charming guy.
He's a handsome guy, boy.
He's still doing it.
What?
Still doing it. Yeah.
And she was so excited to call him up, and he's like,
great.
"Sure, I want to be on Ross's podcast."
It was funny because none of us were really singers. Even though I did sing, I wasn't really like a trained singer. So that show kind of ignited me into wanting to take the singing.
Bro, there's singing, and then there's singing, right? You're a singer. I mean, you
thank
tell
you.
me, tell us about Bruno Mars. You know who Bruno Mars is?
Yeah,
right?
I went on tour with Bruno Mars.
You went on tour with Bruno Mars. What did you
The
do?
Hooligan
You
tour.
carry the amplifiers? What'd you do?
Yeah. I carried all. I
Did you
was
actually
craft
perform
service.
on stage?
I was craft service, so I made really good peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
You sang.
Yeah, I was the opening act for Bruno in Cebu, Manila, different places in Asia. So it was really fun.
Wow. I mean, he's amazing. So
Oh,
you got to
man.
be next level.
That was big. I have a crazy Bruno story actually. I'll tell real quick. I was shooting a show, Hawaii 5-0 in Hawaii, and in another show I was out there. I came back to see his mom, but I would go to this karaoke bar that was right by my condo there, and I was singing one night, and this woman came up to me and she's like, "You remind me of my son." And I was like, "Oh, who's your son?" He's like, "His name's Bruno. He's in L.A. He's trying to really make it as a singer. And he's got a new song called I Want to Be a Billionaire." And I was like, "I think I just heard it on the radio." And it was like, I just heard it on the radio because I was shooting that show. And then all of a sudden, years later, I went on tour with him. So his sister, his mom, passed away. So she's not with us anymore. But we always talked about that story of how I met his mom. And she was like, "Oh, because he's half Filipino too." So
He is.
yeah, yep, yeah.
Might have to cast him in our movie.
Yeah, might have
This is
to.
exciting. I don't want to.
Bruno
I want to
Mars.
spin the wheel. I want to
Yeah, let's
dial
do
the
it.
wheel back a little bit now. So you're Michael Copon. That's your name.
Yeah.
Copon.
Yeah,
It's not like a stage name.
Copon. It's been pronounced so many ways, but it's technically like it's Copon is the Filipino pronunciation. But I used to say Capone, but then I would show up to auditions, they'd spell it like Al Capone.
Right,
So I ended up started pronouncing it Copon, which tends to be Copon, whatever. So it's just however people say it. Like I'm confused myself, so don't
When
worry.
we were
about it.
looking to cast an actor to play Larry,
Yeah.
I was sitting on the couch, and Stephanie goes, "I got it! I found him!" I said, "I found him. He's right in Delray." She says, "No,
Yep.
I found Larry." I said,
Found
"Babe,
Larry."
I got Larry. Don't worry about Larry." She says, "Michael Copon."
That's awesome.
I said, "Who?" She goes, "Michael Copon."
Yeah.
And she just, there was some sort of connection. It was like a divine kind of thing. And we know
Yeah.
the backstory. We're going to share a little bit about that. But she's going crazy. She goes, "No." She turned the TV off. She goes,
Man.
"No, you're going to listen." And we
Well, the fact that you guys were going to shoot in the Philippines and being that, like, I'm one of the top 50 Filipino American stars, I was like just so excited to represent the heritage.
it's
and
amazing.
it's awesome.
It's just unreal.
Yeah.
You're like a taller, better built, handsomer version of Larry. If he was here, he would kill me for saying that.
Larry.
God forbid he watches this.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's the way it's supposed to be because Jordy Belfort, I met,
Yeah.
had dinner with him. I introduced him to his future wife, Nadine.
Yeah, you were telling me that.
And
yeah, that was
when I
awesome.
saw, Leonardo,
Mm-hmm.
playing Jordy, it was like, talk about a stretch.
Yeah.
Nothing against you, Jordy. Nothing against you, Jordy, But
Leo
DiCaprio, baby, that's that's how
awesome.
it's done, right? That's how it's done. I want to spin the dial back.
Yeah.
So you're born Michael Copon.
Yeah.
Brothers, sisters, mother, father. Where were you born? Tell us about your.
I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, raised in Chesapeake, Virginia, in a little town called Deep Creek. Deep Creek, Virginia.
So you say you're instead of up Schitt's Creek, you're up Deep Creek.
Everyone thought I was Chinese or Mexican. Like, are you Chinese, Mexican? So I went to a school that was really just segregated. It was a, really athletic side. There was a huge urban community and also like a redneck community. It was all compiled into one school. So, and now that one school is broken down into 5 new high schools they built in the area. So it's not
Different
the same.
now, right.
It's different.
And
But
people don't know Virginia's in the South.
yeah, and I was the only Filipino. I was the only brown-skinned person in my school, so it was really kind of like popular for that. Playing football and also being the only race other than white or black at my school. Literally,
It's really interesting. You're not only a song and dance man, but you're an athlete.
yeah. I played
Talk
football.
about it.
Yeah, I played football since I was 6 years old. I played started off flag football, went on to tackle recreational league, played middle school, high school, on a very professional level. We had. Our team was 6th in the nation, so we were 6th in the entire United States, Division I. I had 12 full ride scholarships. D'Angelo Hall was my running back in high school.
Wow.
He played for the
He was a
Redskins.
ball player.
Yeah.
What?
Daryl Tapp, he coaches for the San
Yep.
Francisco. He was my DN. Chris Crocker was the quarterback before me. That was he plays for the Atlanta Falcons.
What did you play? What position?
So I played DN and quarterback. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
it was a great school. Michael Vick, Marcus Vick's from my hometown area too.
Wow.
We had Ronald Curry from our area, Dre Bly. We had a huge football community. Allen Iverson's from my hometown.
Wow. Now you were
Big music community.
You weren't
too.
a song and dance man then, were you?
I
You weren't,
did.
like, in
I
a
did.
drama club.
No, I wasn't in a drama. No, I did. I mean, but I danced around the house. So when I was about 7, 8 years old, I picked up a video camera. Like every time my mom had a video camera, I would go around filming people and dancing and singing like Michael Jackson and stuff. And I just always had a hidden love for performance.
But not in high school. You didn't go.
No,
on
I
stage
didn't.
or
I
anything?
didn't do anything in high school or anything like that. It was all hidden. It was like
Now,
a
these are
hidden.
things I haven't even uncovered yet, so
Yeah.
I'm learning about. So I know you're going to make the leap at some point.
Yeah.
So tell us now, because when I graduated high school, I think I was 17.
Yeah.
Were you 17 when you got out of high school?
I was 17, yeah, but I had moved to LA before I graduated. So I basically dropped out of high school, moved to LA.
Not basically. You
Yeah,
dropped out of
I
high
dropped out of high school.
school. All right. All right.
Well, here's the difference is that my principal let me come back and graduate. So
Whoa.
back then it was like a weird thing where I had to have his permission, but Mr. Hardy, God rest his
Why'd you
soul,
go to
man.
LA? Explain this to the audience.
So I had a photographer and that found my junior prom picture in one of my friend's wallet. And she was a model that went to my high school. And then he was like, I want to meet this guy. I want to do some modeling photos. So went to this house. He took photos, sent it to New York and L.A. and had interest in both cities. And he was telling me, which is an ironic story. He actually showed me a comp card of L.A. models that had Chad Michael Murray as one of their main models.
Wow.
Who I ended up working with on One Tree Hill later. But he was like, I think you should go to L.A. I think you would do really well there. So I went out to L.A. just
how
as
17, 18?
I was 17 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Young.
Young buck, 1982 Toyota pickup
Fresh
truck.
meat in the yard.
Yeah. So I just went out there, lived in my truck, did the whole thing. I took showers at Bally's gym, and I slept in my truck. And then
Really?
6 months later, I went Power Rangers and paid for my first apartment.
This impresses me. Hold on a second. So
Yeah.
you're living in the truck.
Yeah.
You're hustling, right? You're going on
Hustling.
auditions, shoots, whatever,
Yeah.
collecting cards.
Stealing apples at hotels. The nice
Going out at night, right? Meeting
Mondrian.
young ladies.
The Mondrian always gave away like the.
That's my spot.
Yeah, the
See,
Mondrian. You
LA.
know how they give
That's
away
my
the free apples and stuff? I'd
That's
go
my
up in there,
spot. Yeah.
grab. I knew all the hotels that had the free food.
Yep.
I
Yep. I
mean,
get it.
I know
I get
it's sad to say I stole, but I didn't really. I don't know. They don't. I would go into hotels with free breakfast. And eat for a
Listen.
bit. I was smart. Like, look, I went in, acted like I stayed there the night before, get some eggs, and I'd be out for the day. So
Nothing wrong with
no
that.
one, no one stopped me. But don't worry, now I pay for hotels with
We were
breakfast.
all young once.
I was
right?
17. I had nobody helping me out there, and then that was how I did it.
So this Power Rangers is a huge thing.
Yeah.
You're still making money, signing autographs, taking pictures all around the world. In fact,
Yeah.
you just in Bolivia.
And it was
Kentucky, Indianapolis, Austin.
Indiana. It's taken me 30 countries.
I
30
can't
countries.
even. So how do you go from 17 stealing apples to Mondrian? I can't wait to go back there. I know the manager. They all know me. I've been going there for years.
I know, that will be funny
That rooftop bar.
Just to
pool,
go
I
in and
love
like
that
take
whole
an
scene.
apple. Yeah.
I'm going to take Stevie there. I promised him.
Yeah, Mondrian's a great place.
Great. What a scene, boy. I met so many actors
Yeah.
there in Hollywood. So let me just say, so you're 17, you live in a truck.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
And you're taking showers at Bally's, grabbing an apple here and there.
Yeah.
Your first big gig is the Power Rangers?
My first big get.
Do you understand what a crazy story that is?
Yeah, I know. And just to kind of give a forward story, like after Power Rangers, I had 1,482 auditions I kept track of where I heard no for 5 years until I got on One Tree Hill. But Power Rangers was my first audition. I got lucky.
Your first audition?
First audition ever. Like I had modeling jobs already. I was
Right,
already
right,
a Skechers model. I was already a Paxton model. I did a Tommy Hilfiger runway show, but I never did acting. And then LA Talent was a commercial division next door to LA Models, and they said, "Hey, we want to send you out on acting stuff." So they sent me out, and my first audition was for Power Rangers. And so this
Was Power Rangers a thing yet? Not yet?
I mean, it was because it was already like the 9th season when I did it because
Okay.
they already had Lightspeed Rescue and Space, and then mine was Time Force, and I did not know how to audition. This was funny. So my manager or agent said, "Just go in and read." So I literally went in and and read. So Iris Hampton tells this story better because she's the casting of Power Rangers. But I literally was like, "Hi, how are you doing?" What? And then she stops me. She said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, my agent said, come in and read with you. No, Mike, read, like, that's the term, like, read, like, you got to act it. And they're like acting like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh, and then there was like this little like naive kid that was like, the light bulb clicked. She said, tell you what, I'm not even gonna be hard on you. Why don't you just go outside and when you're ready to come back in, come back in. So
I would have said, I'm not leaving.
I did. I did take 2 hours later, came back in, and then I got a call back and a call back, and then I became the Blue Power Ranger, yeah.
What a great.
Yeah, it was,
and you had to sign a contract.
yeah,
right?
year contract, $100,000, and like I said, I actually rented an apartment with the
You're
yellow.
18 years old.
I'm not even 18 yet.
And
so
you get $100,000.
so they push production.
You're not even allowed to sign it. By the way.
I know. So they push production a month and a half till I turn 18, November 13th. So I booked it around like September. So I had moved out in March. So March of 2000, I moved to LA. Like I said, before I graduated, flew back to graduate in June, and then went back out to LA. And by September, I already became a Power Ranger, and then they waited to start shooting till November till I turned 18. So they pushed production during that time.
And what was the first thing you did? I mean, you said it was like the ninth season. It's a movie?
Yeah. So what they do is they take Japanese footage, and then they kind of hire American actors to do the parts that aren't in the costume.
Right.
So we would do all the acting stuff, and then we would turn into Power Rangers, and then they would cut to Japanese footage. That's how Saban saved money. So really wasn't a lot of us in the suits. There were times we did put on suits to kind of cross-reference, but we did a lot of fighting outside of the suit too.
Okay, because I got to say, when I was 17,
yeah, I got it right here.
$100 meant something to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had 1,000.
No, I know. 100. Literally at that time, I had
$100,000 at 17 years old.
I only had $100 when I went to LA with a bag of quarters because we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
And I had a pager. So I would always carry a bag of quarters to call my mom and dad and stuff on payphones and stuff. So yeah, I had a Thomas guide. I have the whole thing, duffel bag in the back. So it wasn't like this whole like,
I get
you know
it.
what I'm saying? Like I am old enough. I'm 42 now, so I am old enough to be like, yeah, I didn't have a cell phone. It was crazy, and I'm like running around LA.
So, now I seen pictures of you. You were good-looking young boy. I mean,
it's a little more in shape, yeah.
Well, we were all good-looking. I mean, I
love food. I
was lean. I was like all muscles and sinew and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're now in the Power Rangers. You're now in L.A.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're now like a somebody. You think you're a somebody. You got $100,000, which is really nothing even then. And then and so your agent is excited. He's getting what, 20%, 15%?
Yeah, well, they take 10%. The agent takes 10. Right. Manager takes 10. Yeah.
I got you. So now,
lawyer takes 5.
You
get to keep like 5%.
$12. So now,
but I have a funny story. Let me tell the truth since it's a podcast. So really, that was my first lawsuit too. So I had this guy get me in a 10-year contract of 10% of everything I make, and he was the photographer that took pictures of me. His name was George Cardis. And I ended up beating him later out, but he really took advantage of me as a 17-year-old kid. And he didn't do any work. He just sent me to L.A. And he was trying to collect money off something he didn't help me do. But because I didn't know anything, I signed it.
Right.
But I was also underage. My mom and I didn't know.
Right.
So that's how we won the case later. But when I got Power Rangers, he was threatening to sue me and all this stuff. And I was, scared. I was 17. But I'm like, wait, you did? But all the people in L.A. was like, what is he doing for you? He's sitting in Virginia sipping hot cocoa, but he's not managing you. He doesn't do anything for you.
Right.
He connected you to an agency. That's it.
He's entitled to a few pennies, but that's
No,
it.
but a finder's fee. Like, that's what I'm saying.
That's it.
But at this point, I had already been paying him for all my modeling stuff and all that, but definitely not for 10 years of my acting career.
No, definitely not.
So at that point, I felt like it was fair. At this point, I was already I made some pretty decent modeling money that he had got enough to be a finder's fee.
You get paid to be a model?
Yeah, like $5,000 a day,
$5,000 a day?
Yeah,
Damn.
sometimes 10. I was doing JCPenney ads like $5-10 a day. They'd fly me to Plano for JCPenney's. I'd be out the next morning, $5,000. Boom.
What were you doing with all those?
Well, no, I wasn't consistent. Like, it wasn't after Power Rangers. It became more consistent. Before Power Rangers, I was still like living my truck. Because here's the thing: what they don't tell you about modeling, it's still a business where you got all these advances, like a record label. So you're staying in this apartment that you don't realize you're paying $3,000 a week for. That has cockroaches and stuff. So it's not this beautiful apartment. And then when you get your first paycheck for $5,000, you still owe the agency like $20,000. Right. So
everybody's robbing.
Yeah. So that's why I lived in my truck even more, because originally I didn't plan to live in my truck. I planned to live at the modeling apartment, but I'm not paying $3,000 a week to live with 7 dudes. and with cockroaches and everything. So I was like, I'm actually more
Cockroaches
comfortable.
are extra.
They're extra. I charge extra.
Nothing's free.
So actually living in my truck was a little bit more comfortable. I was like, I'm not gonna make money out here if I don't live in my truck.
Right.
So I ended up. That's why I just went ahead and did that.
So now you're doing Power Rangers,
Yeah.
right? And you have a year contract.
Yep.
And you still modeling or no? You stopped the modeling.
I wasn't during the show, but as soon as the show ended, I got back into the modeling.
And did you do any other acting jobs between that first year?
No other acting jobs. I actually started singing more, and that's when I met Lou Pearlman.
Lou Pearlman.
Yes,
One of the
yes.
reasons we think we're
Yes,
all here.
yes.
So Lou Pearlman, tell us who is Lou and what he means to you.
So Lou Pearlman started NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and O-Town, a lot of big music stars. He also was influential in taking Britney Spears from a group called Innocence and put her with Larry Rudolph and brought her solo career to where it is today. I met him through a music manager that I met through Lil Romeo and Lil Bow Wow back in L.A., and he had flown down to L.A. to meet me. And he said, hey, I got this whole idea. He's buying this new company called Options Models, and it became this Wilhelmina model thing, and which ended up being Talent Rock, which was like a talent search program. But he was going to implement me as like he found me online kind of thing.
Right.
So I went to Cancun, Mexico, and then New York City, and then he launches the whole, I met Michael Copon, and now he's flying me down to Orlando. So I moved to Orlando in 2001 or 2002, by the beginning
How
of
old were you?
2002. I was about... I had just turned 19, so I was like really, really, young at that time. And so just turned 19, and I'm living in Orlando, Florida, working on my music career.
In the NSYNC mansion, really. That's
Yeah,
what they called it.
literally, yeah. So, just did the whole thing. Just was working on a solo career for a good long time, and I was signed to Transcon Records, so I was on their payroll and just working on music full time.
So you're getting paid.
Yeah, I was
living in the mansion in
yeah,
Orlando.
so I wasn't acting at that time. So I was just dancing and singing, working on that, getting ready for my tour. And then right around 2003, that next year, my second stepfather died, and that's what brought me back to L.A. It kind of lit a fire in me, and that fire like brought me back to Los Angeles and made me focus on film and television, since I felt like my music really wasn't going anywhere. And there was just a lot of like waiting in the music
When
industry.
did you do this thing with Bruno Mars?
So that was not till later on, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you got to know Lou Pearlman at that
Yeah,
time. Lou
yeah.
Pearlman was a genius when it came to aviation.
Yeah.
That's where he made the bulk of his money.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, I met Lou in federal prison.
Yeah.
Big fat guy.
Yeah.
And he loved boys.
Yeah.
And it was no secret.
Yeah. Same thing. Yep.
I say allegedly because who knows, but I actually...
That's what we saw, and that's one thing I
at the
told
time
Lou.
with Lou, so I know.
Lou and I had an understanding that, hey, he knows how my mindset, my spirituality worked. He knew what I wanted to learn, which was business from him. So that's why I think why my career never really took off, maybe because I think he did put a lot more energy into people that maybe there was more of a incentive.
This is
maybe.
a pocket. People traded sex for fame in that business.
Yeah. So that's why I felt there was a lot of weight. But although Lou and I did develop a business relationship outside of that carried on for years up until he went to prison.
Right.
Like I told you before,
I know
he,
that,
he,
yeah.
he invested later. He invested in a movie that I was producing, and the check bounced. It was a boy band remake. It was supposed to be a spinoff of my That's So Raven boy band character. So if you watch the movie Boy Band, which is now called Breakdance Academy, Ryan Hansen, who was in That's So Raven with me, is actually in the movie too. And we tried to get Columbus short, but he was shooting Stomp the Yard at the time with Chris Brown and all that. Right. So he was also the other boy band member. So I mean, Lou and I had developed a relationship. We had a mutual respect for each other. So I didn't want to be involved in his other practices, but he was a business owner. He knew how to make millions and billions. I think there was I don't know the full story of what he did, but there definitely was some, conspiracy of him allegedly stealing.
Lou, for some reason, held me in high regard in terms of financial things, market-related things, and personal financial things. And he confided some things in me. Mm-hmm. I'm even though it's a podcast and Lou's passed on, I'm not even going to bring it up. But Lou was extremely sophisticated.
Yeah.
And had extremely sophisticated advice.
Yeah.
From serious guys. And he was considered a genius by many people.
He really was. I mean, he was a genius. I mean,
I agree with that.
His success. I mean, I would say if he didn't, I don't know how much he stole, but let's say even if he didn't steal what they claimed he stole, I know he would have been a millionaire already. I mean, he really was smart. I mean, he was so they said he embezzled $600 million, but I think it just got to a point where he just got greedy because he really was a smart genius when it came to business.
Right.
So he would have made easily.
Well, he already made it. He already made it. They said he tapped into the pension fund, et cetera.
Yeah.
But
no,
our government, our DOJ, is a way of creating crime. When they step in, all of a sudden there's a crime.
Yeah, I watched the guy. I literally would watch him. We would go to dinners every night, and I mean, I flew on private jets with him.
He liked to eat, Lou.
Dude, yeah, he loved to do it. He would have 12 people at every dinner and every lunch and dinner. Right. He didn't eat breakfast. He only ate lunch and dinner. And even if I wanted something like how today we went to the Starbucks, he would tell me to wait because he would be like he'd want to put it all in the tab for lunch and all in the tab for because everything had to be a write-off. He didn't have loose funds.
He picked up the tab. He was that
kind of a guy. He always picked the tab up, but he didn't have loose funds. He wouldn't buy like $12 a year. He had a big lunch and a big dinner every day, and that's where his money went.
Very interesting. Yeah. So now
and in his house he only had drinks. So he loved Martinelli's apple juice. So if you look in his fridge, he had two levels of just Martinelli's apple juice.
That's funny. I happen to like Martinelli's.
So and then he would have Yoo-hoo, and then he would have water, and then he would have I forget what the other drink was. But here's the thing: if you took one drink, you had to replace it with one out of the cupboard.
I understand. I get it.
It was everything in his house was so
very anal, very
he was
ADD.
so meticulous.
I get it.
You would move. I would always move things on his desk because it would like. Later, like he'd be sitting there, he'd be like talking on the phone. He'd be like, "Oh," he'd move it while he's on the phone.
He had to have it a certain way.
He knew where everything was.
I get it.
It was
like
crazy.
A degree of autism, maybe. Just an anal way. So now let's fast forward. You're in the house. You've done some modeling. You're a Power Ranger. Yeah. You're obviously a song and dance guy. What happens next?
Well, like I said, there was a lot of just waiting going on with the music career, and at that point, when my second stepdad died, I just kind of, like I said, it ignited something in my heart to just say, hey, go back to LA and just keep hustling this. You can't keep waiting for this possible music career to happen with Lou or these possible movies he's going to put you in. And there were offers that, like I won't talk about in detail here, but there was things that came with that offer, big names in the business that had been brought to me. And I saw those movies get made, and the same three movies that was sitting in front of me get made.
There were strings attached, you say?
There were strings attached, and I declined.
I can't say that I blame you.
I will say one of the movies was Black Hawk Down, and there was a couple other movies that were tied to it. Big movies. And it sat right in front of me with a big contract attached, and I walked away from that. But when my dad Jim died, I moved back to LA, got a new agent, got back in the commercial game, in the modeling game, and not even maybe a year later, I'm auditioning and booking One Tree Hill. So
Tree Hill,
yeah.
big
show.
Big show. Both my kids watched it, and I happen to know you were making $40,000 a week.
Yeah, it was
pretty decent money.
It was good. It was good money. It was really good money.
I mean.
It's definitely, I mean, to think, making someone's yearly salary in like one week.
Right. And last night at dinner, there were people saying, Felix.
Yeah.
They recognize you, and it's just like unbelievable. And my kids were excited.
The show has built a cult following. I mean, even today, people watch it. Just like Power Rangers, now it's the parents are getting their kids involved in the show.
How many seasons were you on?
I did only one season.
One season.
But the show went 9 seasons. But that's because I was leaving to go on to a new show, and that was the plan. But but that's why if you ever watch One Tree Hill, my character just abruptly goes to military school, and everyone was confused because my arc was going somewhere. But my sister and my sister on the show, we both had to agree to leave, and she wanted to leave for another project too. But looking back, sometimes I would, I know people say don't worry about the what ifs and all that, but, it was a very comfortable position that I could have stayed in. That sometimes the older me probably would have maybe told myself to just stay on the show.
40 grand a week sounds good to me.
You know,
right now.
bird in hand, two in the.
I get it, bro. I get 100%. So now, I mean, let's talk about some of the almosts. You know, where you're knocking on the door, your High School Musical. I've seen that movie 30 times. I have two little girls.
I've got so many almost.
Zac Efron story. Come on, give it to
Well,
us.
let's just say, so after I left One Tree Hill, I did a show called Beyond the Break, but that was not the show I was intended to be on. I left to be on Peter Berg's Friday Night Lights TV series, and I was supposed to be on that show. I was supposed to test alone. There was some controversy with my agent and manager that they both asked for too much money. Now, Peter in the audition told me it was only going to be $24,000 an episode, which is actually half of what I was making on One Tree Hill. But hey, I was about to play a fullback on a football TV show. That was a dream role for me. So I said, no problem. But I go in, when you go in to test for the show, you know, you go in, you're going in for your audition. You're not thinking about your contract. You have an envelope there. You pull it out. You sign where it says, the tab says sign here. You sign there. You put it back. You give it away. You don't look at anything. You don't look at the numbers. Not trained to, at least. At least now I do. But I'm 21 years old or something like that.
You trust your agent. You don't.
I'm trusting my agent, my manager. They're taking care of everything. And then I noticed there's two other people auditioning there with me when Peter said I was going to test alone. And I didn't know why there's other two people there. Anyways, long story short, I don't get the role. A month later, I'm in the Dallas airport coming back from JCPenney ad, Plano, Texas. And I'm up the escalator, and guess who I bump into? Peter Berg, the director. So we go and grab a drink and some food together.
Wow.
We start talking, and I just said, hey, what did I do wrong? I just want to learn what I did wrong so I can fix it or be better for my next role.
I get it.
And Peter said, Michael, you didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? I told you, you were my guy. The real fullback in Friday Night Lights was a Hispanic guy, and you fit the build. He was big and husky like you, and he was of Latino descent. And you were the guy, but you were just too expensive. And I said, too expensive? What do you mean? I told you I was going to do it for what you're...
Right.
He goes, no, you were out for $65,000 an episode.
65.
So then I go, wait, what? So I call my agent. He blames it on my manager. I call my manager. He blames it on my agent.
They're passing the buck back and forth.
First time I had to learn the lessons is you can't trust even people that represent you in Hollywood. So at this point, I don't know who to believe. I ended up firing my manager at the time, and I stayed with my agent. But I think that also turned out to be a bad thing too later on for my next story.
How would you know
I don't know, because at that point,
bad luck.
It was tough, and but needless to say, I still got on a show. I got on Beyond the Break, which was for the N Network, and I'm in Hawaii for a year, living there, shooting
wrong with that.
And that was directed by. Oh man, his name slipped my brain right now, but he did That So Raven. Oh, Sean McNamara, and Sean's done the Bratz movie. He's done a bunch of movies actually. If you just Google him, he's an incredible director, and he brought me on to that show, so I did that show for a year.
Now you've modeled.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of commercials, right?
Yeah,
I mean, today.
Yeah,
because you're a producer and all that.
I was in a bunch of commercials.
You've been in a bunch of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Where does your heart lie? Movies?
Well, movies is definitely where my heart lies. There's something about cinema that just takes you to a different world. You know, it's like the steak and wine dinner. I always tell people TV, especially social media, even more so, is like a Hot Pocket and a soda pop. It's not it's fast, it's quick. It's not meant to just take your time and just
I get it.
Enjoy it. But the movie's like a nice fine dining experience. You got your wine, you got your steak, you got your nice appetizer, dessert.
You're not just eating.
Yes, you're talking for 3-4 hours at dinner.
I love movies. I'm a film guy.
I'm a film dude, and at that point, so like I said, when that transition happened, there was a lot of other transitions that was the same time. I did get Bring It On. I did get Scorpion King during that time. I was shooting But Can They Sing when I did the high school show.
One of the biggest movie franchises in history.
Yeah.
Twilight.
Yeah. And that led to the
vampire and the wolf boy.
Yes.
You should have been the goddamn wolf.
Yeah. Well, look, that story was another situation.
Let's share this one story, 'cause this is crazy.
So the story happens my agent represent Taylor Lautner as well as me.
Right.
So they used to call Taylor Little MC. And I had met with Catherine, who was the head director of Twilight One.
Yes.
And then there was a agreement of me playing the Twilight role. So we were at the Mondrian.
Yep.
The Chateau Marmont.
Chateau Marmont.
Chateau.
Another one of my spots.
The Chateau. And we went to the Chateau. We had an amazing lunch. Shook hands. Like,
right across from the Mondrian.
Yes, let's do this deal. Get the phone call a little bit later, a couple months. My agent's saying they're thinking that you might be too old to play the young Jacob Black. Now, if you read the book,
I read all the books.
Yeah, so Jacob Black, he's supposed to be smaller in the book, and then he grows 8 inches,
right.
Cuts his hair, and all that type of stuff. So that's when my agent, who also represented Taylor Lautner, he's a win-win situation. He was like, "Hey,
really cornered the market."
Yeah, he really cornered the market. He pushed Taylor into the situation. And Taylor got the role, which I had this impression that I'm still going to be able to come into
you were final two spot.
Yeah, and
High
also
School Musical, Zac Efron, you were final two spot.
Yeah, same with that too. So
you've been knocking on the
Kenny
door.
Ortega,
of that you're knocking on that door.
Knocking on the door. My IMDb rating at the time was bouncing between 56 and 22. I've been as low as 22.
22. Explain that to the audience.
So
that's crazy.
So that year, People Magazine did an article, the 50 hottest guys on the rise, and it's Usher, Jake Gyllenhaal, Michael Copon, me was there. I was one of the 50 guys. IMDb is like a stock market for actors. It's all of the actors. It's the International Movie Database. That's what IMDb stands for. If you have the pro version, you can see what the actors' ratings are. And when you're like below 100, you're basically top 100 actors of the business at the time. Like right now, I think like the guys from that Dune movie or they're so
I'm
every
a big fan of this Timothée Chalamet now.
It really kind of bumps up and down. So being whoever's hot on the spot, you're there. But when you're there, I mean you're literally like that's breaking ground for like he's about to be the next big whatever.
Correct.
And I was, like I said, testing for High School Musical, and I already booked the Twilight, and then didn't get the Twilight, and I just finished Scorpion King 2, where I played the young Rock, and I'm 22 on IMDb, so it was just a hot time for me. And then the '08 crash happens, and that was like, I think that just shut down the energy of not only the world, but it shut down the energy of the business too, because there was also a 1-year writer's strike. So I had this really strong momentum going into the writer's strike and also the '08 crash. And it just went, pow. And I went from having hundreds of auditions a year to only 5. And that's what led to me producing my first feature, which was a horror movie called Killer Holiday. And that excited my brain of filmmaking. And that led me into moving home in 2012. And I started my own production company in Virginia, Michael Copon Studios, and I started making my own movies at that point. So this was the point where I said, I'm done with the hustle and bustle of trying to beg for roles, because I was always, because it's not about talent. Who's the new Captain America?
Chris Evans?
No, the new one.
Black guy.
What's his name? There was a podcast where he was actually going on air saying that roles are not earned, they're given.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is a situation that I resonated with what he was saying, because you could work as hard as I was probably one of the hardest working guys. I mean, 8-pack. I was in class 5 days a week. I worked my butt off. I kept tabs of every audition, and when it comes down to the last you and whoever. Like Zac Efron, for instance. I mean, it's no secret that Drew Seeley sang his entire.
He can't sing.
Yeah, well, he can now. I'm not going to say he can't,
right.
but he didn't sing the first 2 movies. It was Drew Seeley.
Can't sing like you.
Yeah, and so it wasn't how good I was as a singer.
Right.
It wasn't how good I was as a basketball player or dancer for that movie. It's just nearly the fact that they needed a Caucasian guy to be opposite.
I get it.
Vanessa Hudgens at the time.
Yeah.
So that's why I do say you can work as hard as you want in that business and not get a role. And it's just not, it's crazy. I also said this, nowhere in any other business, like you can go become a doctor or a lawyer and no one can take that away from you.
Right.
But in the film business, you can be a 20-year veteran actor and then be back in the mailroom year 21.
Right. But
you know what I mean?
You could all of a sudden become an Academy Award winner.
And then you can be, like Robert Downey's proven that. He went from...
How about like Michael Copon, who's about to be nominated?
I know.
I mean, what? What?
That's
Who's
why-
playing Larry Hartman?
I
It's
know.
not Steve
I know.
Freifeld.
I know.
It's not Eli Pereira.
But see, if I,
Who's playing Larry Hartman? Not Larry Hartman.
that's right.
Michael Copon is. Who's
that's-
directing
That's the beauty.
Michael Copon?
That's the beauty of this business.
Michael Copon.
Yeah. That's the
Guess
beauty.
what? You've taken control of your own destiny. Just a little sidebar. I got tired of working for guys, interviewing with guys, watching guys blow up their firms.
Yeah.
And I'm the biggest producer on Wall Street. I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to start my own firm.
Yeah.
If I'm going to blow up, I might as well blow myself up.
Yeah.
And I did. And that's how I
That's-
went into business for myself. And
That's exactly
my
what I
story's
did.
my
2012 was the time I took everything into my own hands. So everything we've talked about at this point was all out of my control. I got some successes. I had a great ride, but I wasn't in control. 2012 till now, I've been in control. So every film I've produced, every Emmy I've won, everything that has led to this moment has been in my control that no one could take away.
One of the things about last night, just so my audience knows, we went out for a big dinner last night. I met Michael for the first time yesterday, picked him up at the airport. We had a nice conversation. We went to dinner at Prezzo, as I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned quite a few things about you.
Yeah.
And, you and I met in a very strange circumstance.
Yeah.
And I like to think that this is like divine energy.
Yeah, it is.
Happening in real life, right? So, we touched on a lot of different things, and it comes out at dinner that you won like 20 Emmys.
Yeah, we have a show called The Bed. It's won 23.
And you 23 Emmys, and you keep putting it down like, oh no, I don't care. These only Emmys. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I won. I pitched a no hitter in a softball game in high school, and I can still brag about that. You won 23 Emmy awards, and to you, it's nothing.
Well, for us in the film industry, I think, we're always striving for that Oscar. The Oscar is like, I guess if you're in the theater world, it's like the Tony.
That
That's what you're going
elusive
for.
Oscar. Yes, yes.
It's kind of like it's like if you're a quarterback, it's like you could win maybe most passing yards passed, but if you don't win that Super Bowl,
you got to win the ring.
you got to win that ring.
You
got to win that
chip,
ring.
as
You
they
got to
say.
win that ring. Nothing else matters until you win that ring.
I get
and
it.
Then when you win that ring, then you gotta beat like what Michael Jordan's accomplished, or whatever Tom Brady. You got to have the most Super Bowls.
It's like in my business, in the stock market business, they say, you got to take your company public. I did 100 times. No, you got to take yourself public.
Yeah.
I did that too.
See.
I did it twice. They left out, you got to stay out of prison.
Yeah.
Damn it. If I would have heard that, I might have accomplished that. So, I'm sitting on my couch one day. Lawrence Hartman wrote an incredible book called Blind Greed.
Yeah, amazing book.
It's really just a great book. It has not been released yet to the public.
Yeah, not released.
And he wrote a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And we would agree to produce this as Raw Media, a new media company that we're building. And then all of a sudden, Stephanie somehow discovers your name.
Mm-hmm.
We did some research on you, and I got it. I'm sitting here right now across from you, and I see just Larry Hartman. Now, the Larry we know and love today is not the Larry of yesteryear.
Yeah.
I saw some of those pictures. Those sexy pictures. I'm afraid if he shows them to Janelle, he might have his way. Because Larry was a good-looking, athletic. I know Larry's working out his whole life. He's a world-class hockey player, an ice skater, and he's a brilliant kid.
When you guys when you reached out to me, and to come to find out, like these guys reached out like almost 40 something times.
Tell the audience.
It was like 40. It was like 45 or 47 times on Instagram. It's like almost like a month and a half of them reaching out every day.
He was ghosting me. It's like my sex life, my dating life. I ask her out 45 times.
Yeah.
Most guys quit after the third time.
Yeah, you didn't quit.
On the 46th time, you called me back. You said, all right.
I was sitting there and I was like, who is this guy? So, I remember writing you back and you were like, hey, let's get on the phone. And we jumped on the phone and right away. And that's when we found out we both had the connection to Lou. Now,
that was crazy.
The craziest thing, and I'll tell the audience this too, is that Lou was like a father figure to me. And he always promised that he would still make my career happen. But he ended up dying in prison and going to prison. So I always my producing career that I was going to have with Lou back in 2008, 9, 10 just went bye-bye when he went to prison.
Right.
And that's kind of also, I think during the switch in my life, that's when he went to prison. It was right around that same time everything switched, 08, 09 and all that. So when he brought up Lou Pearlman, when you brought up Lou Pearlman, that was a connection to me that Lou still named the book Blind Greed. He wrote the foreword for the book.
I mean, why?
And then that was literally, it was like a divine intervention.
We didn't know anything, I
Yeah.
just have to be candid.
And I've been so my first incorporated company was Divine Purpose Productions. That was still pays me our residuals today. Divine the divine life, that divine intervention has been something I always focus on. So the moment you said that, you resonated with, like lions. I've got a lion tattoo on my arm, and
yep, we talked about lions. Next thing you know, he's wearing a lion, and you got
I
lions outside your door.
I have black lions that sit in my right outside my door. There was so much things that we were resonating with. But
Crazy.
The main thing was you sent me the script in the book. I just immediately engulfed it. Like I read the script, I read the book, I read the script again, and to hear Larry's story, which I just related to. There was a side of me that that was a very, very recluse artist, of me when I was a kid. I would sit in the back corner when my mom was working in the hair salon, and I would draw and I would paint. And then there's this other side of me that's just very outgoing athlete. So when I was reading Larry's story, I could see that side of him. Like when you meet Larry, you might not, he might come off like he might be a recluse, like introverted guy. But to read all this crazy wild stuff he's done too, you're like, oh my God. But I get it, because there are people that know me. There's an article that's when I booked Power Rangers, still up on my dad's walls, newspaper. Everyone talked about how Michael's a shy guy. Michael's the coaches of the football team. Everyone, Michael, he's such a nice shy kid. High school, everyone thought I was this shy kid, and then I become this, entertainer. But I wasn't shy. I was very much an introverted artist.
You were evolving.
Yeah. But there's moments I can be like, "Hey, how you guys doing?"
What's shaking, baby?
Oh, it's shaking, baby. How you doing? But there was a very much introverted kid inside me. So when I read the book, I just got it. I got Larry Hartman.
I think, I know him fairly well. I think he's a pretty complex character.
Very complex.
I can't figure him out.
Well, that's how I see it. He's a very morally complex businessman that just got into the situation of life tempting you into multiple directions. We all know what that is. I mean, it's senses at our best, like sensory overload.
We have appetites as men.
Yes, there's so many avenues you can go in life, and when you have that much success so quick, I mean, most people don't know that unless you've reached success where you're making money,
millions of dollars at your disposal.
So I understand, and that's why it's just incredible to tell a story like this now.
So you're going to play Larry Hartman.
I'm going to play, direct, and
you're
be
going to
producing
direct
this with Raw Media.
And
baby.
you're going to co-produce it with Ross Mandel at Raw Media. Right. You're making this movie in the Philippines, I understand.
Yes, in the Philippines.
I love that idea.
The global advantage of that is because there's just so much. Look, Philippines is so diverse, and also the benefit is our dollar is so powerful to them. So not only do we might be able to save 10, 15% or even more, they make 3-4 times the amount of money that they would normally make on a daily basis.
Little backstory for me. So my dad, World War II veteran, was stationed in the Philippines for years. And after the war, because Truman opted to drop the bomb, my dad was scheduled to be in the first wave of GIs to hit the beaches, in Japan. And our brains in Washington predicted that 100,000 Americans would die on the beach in the invasion. And that's why Truman opted to drop the bomb on Hiroshima 3 days later on Nagasaki. I became like an expert on that subject. And my dad had these pictures. He died when he was 48 years old. But he told me the stories. But when he passed, my mother gave me an envelope which had like a copy of his birth certificate and pictures of him in Manila, in the Philippines.
Wow.
And he had a Filipina girlfriend. Really? And he used to joke, but I was a kid, I didn't understand. I might have a couple of Filipino brothers and sisters.
You might.
I swear, I'm not
I
kidding.
think
You
I
should
met
say
a
that.
couple Mandels out
And
there.
my dad was I didn't know at the time, but as I got older, I came to find my dad was a bit of a player. Shocking.
Yeah, right?
Shock. And he always talked about the Philippines in such a way.
Yeah.
But I never made it there, and I've been all over the world, and I've done business everywhere.
Beautiful country.
And the fact that this is evolving the way it has evolved,
Yeah.
I'm so excited because when I heard him speak about the Philippines, it was and you're talking about in the 40s
Yeah.
he was there. What a beautiful, physically beautiful place. What a beautiful people. And their culture.
Yeah, Palawan actually just won Travel Leisure Magazine's most beautiful place to travel and visit.
What's it called?
Palawan, Travel Leisure Magazine over the Maldives, Fiji, Palawan, El Nino in Palawan, and it just won.
And what is that? A town, a city, a resort?
It's just a gorgeous beach. Like if you Google Palawan, it just looks like the movie Avatar. It's got those floating mountains.
You see me one day at a Speedo.
Yeah, you can do that there. You can do that.
My doctor says, I complain to him, because I don't feel great all the time. He's like, your Speedo days are over. Yeah. Ross, your Speedo days are over.
I love it because it's literally it's literally the Hawaii of the Asian islands. So you've got Japanese, Vietnamese, Chinese, all of that's mixed in. People from Thailand, they're all mixed in the Philippines, and then of course the Filipino people. I mean, not just because I'm Filipino, but just our culture. They always say that Filipinos are great gamblers because we're so giving, and it's true. They're easily giving of their money, so they'll give their money in gambling. They'll be at every bingo spot, but they're also like nurses. So you hear Joe Coy always joke about saying, Filipinos are mainly nurses. And they
I'll tell you another funny story. Larry's dad, who I got to know pretty well over the years, he has an appetite for Filipino women.
Oh.
Larry had a few stepmoms, is that what you would call them, that were Filipino?
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. It's so wild. It was all meant to be. It's just a crazy
thing. It's a beautiful
thing.
Culture,
And
beautiful people.
I'm proud to announce the partnership and joint venture between Copon Films, Copon Studios, and Raw Media.
It was time. You reached out to me at a time when I was ready for the next step. So I always been calling my life the 12-year cycle. So I moved out to LA in 2000. 2012, I moved back home. 2024 was the end of my last 12-year cycle, and I was already moving this mindset into distribution and now building a media company with stock.
Raw Media years.
Yes, the stock. Coming in as a founder, we're focusing on building a multi-level media company with stock options and doing more than just film now. Like now, even I'm evolving to just more than a filmmaker.
AI is going to take over the whole industry.
It is. We've got toys, we've got comic books, we've got T-shirts, we've got all merchandise, we've got all media stuff. So it's not now just focused on one aspect of the industry, which is
the new media.
Yes,
for the new generation.
Yeah,
I'm so excited to see what's coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, and
thank you.
I'm happy to say that we're going to continue this interview soon, shortly.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a third wheel.
Yes.
We're going to introduce for the first time ever Michael Copon and Larry Hartman. We'll see if you can tell the difference. I'm not going to give it away. So great, bro. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Wham.